I moved out to the countryside for peace and quiet. After spending decades surrounded by sirens, honking, and HOA letters complaining about the color of my mailbox, I'd had enough. I found a beautiful 10-acre ranch just on the edge of a semi-rural town with rolling hills, a small pond, and the kind of silence you can actually hear. The ranch had everything I'd wanted for years: a classic red barn, an old but sturdy farmhouse, and all the space I needed to breathe. It felt like I could finally live on my own terms. Or so I thought. On my very first day, as I was unloading the last few boxes from my truck, I saw her, marching down my gravel driveway like she owned it, wearing a pink velour tracksuit and oversized sunglasses, came the woman I'd later come to know, unfortunately, as Karen. She didn't bother with a greeting. No, hello, no, welcome to the neighborhood. She went straight to confrontation. "You can't just park that trailer here," she said sharply, jabbing a finger toward my RV still hitched to the back of my truck. I blinked. "Sorry, what?" "This is a homeowners association. There are rules. No trailers, no livestock fencing, no construction after 5 p.m. She rattled off like she had a checklist memorized. I looked around slowly, then pointed toward the tree line. "Ma'am, I'm outside the HOA boundary. My land is private property," she huffed. "We'll see about that. I have the maps. I know every inch of this community. You're still affecting the view of paying residents." That's when I realized what this was about. She didn't care about rules. She cared about control, and my arrival disrupted the illusion of authority she held over the neighborhood. I didn't smile. I didn't argue. I just turned back to my truck and went about my business. The next morning, I opened my mailbox and found not one but 3 folded letters, unsigned, of course, all from the HOA. One claimed I needed to remove all visible farm structures. Another accused me of violating aesthetic guidelines. The third said my property activity had been noted. The tone wasn't neighborly. It was threatening but vague enough to keep a lawyer just out of reach. Then came the notes. Someone, obviously Karen, left handwritten paper scraps tied to my front gate. "This isn't a dump. Not a farm zone. Expect fines." I found another wedged into the RV's door handle. "Move it or lose it." But the thing that really made my blood boil? She stopped an Amazon delivery truck halfway up the road and screamed at the driver that commercial vehicles weren't allowed past her cul-de-sac. The poor guy, just trying to do his job, looked at me helplessly until I waved him through. Karen yelled the whole time, standing in the street with her hands on her hips. I tried to stay calm. I'd come here to leave that kind of behavior behind. But she just wouldn't quit. Anytime I so much as hammered a nail or painted a fence post, she was there, standing at the edge of her property with her phone out, filming, documenting, building some imaginary case against me. The thing is, I wasn't alone. My son, Nate, had just returned from a long deployment. He was 26 now and recently became a deputy sheriff for the county. He wasn't one for drama either, but he didn't like bullies. Karen hadn't seen him around much. She probably assumed he was just another family member helping me move. But that assumption was going to cost her more than just her precious control. It was going to cost her her freedom. 2 weeks after I moved in, the harassment hit a whole new level. Karen wasn't just being nosy, she was obsessed. Every single morning, like clockwork, I'd see her out front, walking her little white poodle down the road, sunglasses on, phone in hand, pretending to exercise while sneakily taking photos of my property. She'd pause near my mailbox, stare at my barn like it personally offended her, and shake her head in disgust. I kept telling myself to let it go. I hadn't broken any laws. My land was legally zoned for what I was doing. Still, it was hard to ignore when someone basically made it their part-time job to stalk you. Then came the incident that pushed everything over the edge. It was a warm Thursday morning. I was out back feeding the chickens and hauling hay, minding my business. My son Nate was inside in uniform, getting ready to head out for his afternoon patrol shift. Just as I wiped the sweat from my forehead and reached for a water bottle, I noticed the flashing blue and red lights at the end of our long gravel driveway. 2 sheriff cruisers slowly rolled in, tires crunching over the dirt. My heart dropped. I wasn't panicking, but I was confused. I hadn't called for anyone, and there was no emergency. One of the deputies stepped out. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, and gave me a cautious look. "Sir, we got a 911 call about this property," he said, glancing at his notes. "Caller reported suspicious activity, said you might be keeping stolen livestock in unregistered vehicles." I almost laughed out loud. "Are you serious?" I asked. "Stolen livestock? This is my ranch. Everything here is legal. Who called? This inn?" He didn't answer, but I already knew. And just like clockwork, she arrived. Karen marching down the road like she was leading the parade, grinning like she'd just won a battle. She crossed her arms and said, "Told you someone would handle it. This place has been a circus since he got here. Go ahead, search the barn." That's when Nate stepped out onto the porch, in full uniform, badge gleaming in the sunlight, duty belt on, calm as ever. Karen's expression froze like a statue. She blinked, confused. Who is that?" "That's my son," I said, biting back a smirk. "Deputy Nathan Cooper." Nate walked straight up to the officers, introduced himself, and calmly asked for a summary of the call. As they explained, his face didn't change. He just nodded, then slowly turned to Karen. "Ma'am," he said, "did you place this 911 call?" Karen's voice cracked just a little. "Well, yes, I did, but I was doing my civic duty. There have been constant violations, strange noises, trailers, livestock." Nate cut her off. "Do you understand that knowingly filing a false police report is a misdemeanor offense under this county's penal code? You stated criminal activity was occurring here with no evidence and wasted emergency resources." Karen's confidence drained in real time. "Wait, what? I was just trying to report a possible issue. You can't. This is harassment." Nate remained professional. "You've been filming this property for days. We have multiple instances of you trespassing at the gate. Today, you involved law enforcement under false pretenses. That's enough for detainment and investigation." Karen's eyes widened. "You're not serious. You can't arrest me. I'm on the HOA committee." "I'm serious," Nate replied. "Turn around, hands behind your back." The other deputy moved in, and before she could say another word, Karen was in handcuffs, standing in the same spot she'd screamed from hours before. The smugness was gone, replaced with shock, rage, embarrassment. As they read her rights, she tried yelling about lawyers, about lawsuits, about knowing people in high places. But none of that mattered. She wasn't above the law, and now, for the first time, she was finally learning they